All right, I'm back streaming live. It is January 17th. It's a Thursday, 2019, and today I'm going to be working on a PowerShell core bug. Technically, it is a bug that's been there since PowerShell 5.1, so it's a kind of a long-standing bug that's been around, but hasn't had a whole lot of attention, at least none that I've seen except for this one bug report. So I've already done some research on it, and I've kind of have had it on my radar for a while. It's been on my backlog, and I need to kind of get back into the swing of things working on the PowerShell web commandlets because it's been a while since I've done any kind of work on the PowerShell project. Um, Changing jobs, moving across the country, having to uh, learn a whole bunch of new skills in my spare time, and just all the kinds of things that take up your time when you get a new job and move halfway across the country that you just wouldn't expect. Kind of got in the way of this, so I've been a little out of practice on this. They've made changes to how everything's done, um, so it's and I haven't kept up with everything, so this is going to be kind of a stepping back into the saddle, back into the ring, whatever metaphor, euphemism you want to use there. And it's kind of an easy bug to fix. So, anyways, let's get into the details of that. Um, so first off, the bug that I'm going to be fixing is issue 7199, and it's titled Invoke Web Request PS version 6.02. Unable to set expect 100 continue request header field in multi-part form data. So it really doesn't even matter about the multi-part form data. The gist of this bug is that if you supply the header expect 100 equal continue to either invoke web request or invoke rest method, it will strip that header. So you can't even send an expect 100 header. And that's a really weird thing. Like, why would it do that? Why would it even care about this expect header? Uh, so first, let's talk about the expect 100 header. I'm not extremely familiar with this header. Um, my exposure to it was really through this bug and just doing some quick research on it. Basically, expect 100 tells the server that uh, it's going to kind of wait around for a 100 response, and that's what it's expecting, and kind of puts in a delay. And it's for things where like the server has to process some headers or something before it can continue. There's a lot of kind of edge cases to it out there that I don't necessarily understand why they're doing it that way. It seems like a bad design. Um, in any case, it's something that apparently some people want to use. Definitely, Fizco here wants to use this feature. They have a good need for it. So uh, the it needs to be fixed, even if it's not something I've been really familiar with. But even though it's was reported for 6.02, it persists. The issue is still there. It hasn't been removed, and it actually predates this. Like I said, it's the same in 5.1. And I did research on this a while back, and I found a really back in the day commit of this of the web commandlets that had some data in it. I think this is when they were copying over the um, source code from the private repositories to this Git repository that ultimately became public. But in it, there is And then expect should be there. No, not finding it. All right. I guess I could go here. It's probably just not expanded. There's probably too many files in that one. But yeah, this code is from legacy. It's in the actual Windows PowerShell commands, and it's setting the service point manager expect 100 continue to false. And some history here, which I didn't even know, is that the service point manager in .NET Core, so this is the full .NET Core, that service point manager has expect 100 continue set to true by default. So that means that by default, it will send an expect 100 continue header to all endpoints. All well and good if those can actually support expect 100, but as you can see, there's a comment here about some websites will return exception on post when except 100 is sent. The default behavior is to continue to send the body after a short period. Here it's send two parts as whole. Whatever that means, it's kind of a crap comment, but the real issue here is that when you post to an endpoint and you send the expect 100, it might cause issues. So not every endpoint supports it or implements it the same. There's a lot of warnings out there that say don't use expect 100, don't implement it, don't try to use it. But apparently there's also some use cases that you can't even do without expect 100. But that's neither here nor there. So the history of this is that back in PowerShell 5.1, the WebCmdlet authors decided that it would be best to just set this to false. Hey, Joel. And they were probably right to do so, except that there's no code to actually set it back to true if somebody sets the expect header in the request. So even in 5.1, it's going to strip your expect 100 all the time, which is just weird, right? Like you wouldn't expect that. Expect a bunch of expect jokes, by the way. Anyway, they're setting this to false to kind of prevent the fact that it sends expect 100 by default. Now, in PowerShell core, we no longer use the endpoints that take any advantage of Service Point Manager. We're using HTTP client. HTTP client doesn't respect or even care about what you have set in Service Point Manager. So that's completely out. But if we look here, we'll see that the code now has request header expect continue equal false. So they basically found a similar thing that they basically found a similar way to do the exact same behavior. So the request is our HTTP request message that we are building inside of the web commandlets, and the headers is a request headers object. Let me see if I've still got that open over here. It's it's an HTTP request headers object, and there's an expect continue on it, and you can set it to true or false. And really what this does, if you set it to true, it adds the expect 100 continue header, and if you set it to false, it removes it. By default, it is empty. And that's all well and good, except for the fact that fun implementation detail here. In the early .NET Core, there was two different implementations for HTTP client underneath the hood. So on Windows, they used WinHTTP, and then on Linux and Mac, they used curl. And this resulted in all kinds of weird behavior. So curl by default will send out the expect 100 thing too, only its client is smart enough to implement it and manage it and handle it properly, and usually it's not a problem, so no one usually cares. Uh, but the so like you wouldn't set anything, but by default, if you're using .NET Core on Windows and HTTP client, it would send out the expect 100 thing. But on Windows, it wouldn't. It wasn't set. Uh, Fun detail is that curl actually supports the HTTP expect 100 continue header and actually works with it. But the underlying Win HTTP implementation did not. So even if you were to manually do some .NET code to submit a message with the expect 100, the underlying Win HTTP would be like, I ain't doing that. It just wouldn't do whatever you say. It would send the header, but it wouldn't do what normally a client does when you send the expect 100 header. So that's totally messed up. Unfortunately, I think it was like .NET Core 2.1 or something like that. They added their own implementation under the hood that's the same across all of the operating systems and platforms for HTTP client, and consequently also for web request when it's using HTTP and HTTPS. So this new one is it's fairly cross-platform compatible, works almost exactly the same in all of them. It fixed a ton of problems that I was running into in the early 6.0 version of PowerShell, and shortly before it went GA. Uh, it it was great. It made things wonderful. So a lot of these ancient problems are no longer anything we need to even care about whatsoever. Um, the new implementation will handle expect can 100 continue properly if we pass it in. If we don't, it doesn't automatically add it on some platforms and not on others. So really, we have no reason to reject the expect 100 continue uh, header anymore. We can let people use it if they want. Um, it may not work exactly as they expect, but it'll try. In it at least in my digging through the source code of the new implementation, it does try to implement expect 100 continue properly. So with that kind of history lesson out of the way, um, I wanted to touch briefly about um, software development and bug fixing, and something that you may not realize. The If you do this a lot, it's gonna not be news to you. But for me, it was something like just I didn't even expect this. When I started working on the PowerShell project, I definitely did not expect this to come up. But like 90% of your time doing bug fixes is going to be researching, digging through old code, looking at it, older commits, digging through web articles and all that kind of stuff. Because the actual code fixes tend to be, I wouldn't say easy, but tend to be not the hardest part of the work. Figuring out the right way to fix something, figuring out if it's going to break anything, finding out why it was done the way it was before, all that kind of stuff takes up way more time than the actual fix. Um, so now that I've kind of waxed philosophical and gone over the history of this, I can actually get into working on this bug, which is going to be the most uninteresting thing, which is why I brought this up. I'm not even going to go directly to the file. I'm just going to search for expect continue and find it and do this. So this bug fix is this simple. That's it. I've fixed this bug. So all I needed to do was delete the line that removes the expect, that sets the expect. So let me just paste Control Z that. It's just these couple lines. Get rid of this comment because we don't need any more and get rid of where it says request.headers.expectContinue equals false. Bug fixed, right? So now it's on to do some build and testing locally. I like to do this before I push and do a PR and all that kind of stuff. Just kind of make sure it works. Then I want to see if the build processes are still the same or if I'm kind of out of sync. I did some kind of like homework before this just to look to see if the commands have changed. It doesn't look like they've changed too much, so I'm going to try to run them. First, I'm going to do a commit here on this and fix do feature fix expect 100 continue issue. I can always fix that in the PR, but I think that that's all I need to do for this. It's taking a long time to just do a commit. It's crazy. In the meantime, I've already done this. So import module build PSM1. So if you have the source code there, you do that. I did start PS Bootstrap just to make sure that everything's good. I think that it is. It's saying something about some global JSON and SDKs or something, but what could possibly go wrong? We'll do. So the next thing is start to clear this so that it start dash ps build. I think that's all I really need to do. I'll let it build. I might need to do a clean, but maybe it's gonna see that it just needs to redo everything. I haven't built this in forever. Yeah, I need to probably do a clean. Yeah. Try that. I have not built PowerShell in so long. Well, yeah, who knows, like, when the last time I built this. It's probably in June. So, you know, we've had some versions since then, right? there's been some changes. And yeah, I don't always clean right away. I usually do it like this, clean every single time I run the command. But I'm not used to running this from inside VS Code. I'm usually running it from the PowerShell console. So I don't have all the tab completion and Control R stuff to actually do that. So it built. I've got this new exe here. I'm going to copy this and start it. All right, so I'm in the newly built PowerShell. If I do PS version table, you can see that on 6.2.0 preview 3, and it's got the commit ID for the commit that I just did. So what I want to do is I want to do a test against the HTTP bin. So if I do, I'm going to do invoke a web request first. Let me get this URI right quick. Pretty sure it's just headers. So first I'm going to do it without sending anything special. And if I do result.content, so these are the headers that were sent. So it's not sending expect 100 by default. So now I'm going to add a headers expect 100 continue. And look at the content now, and it actually sent. So it's not getting stripped. That's good. I'm going to do the same with I invoke REST method now. Should be the exact same. It's using the except I need to do result.headers, and expect 100 was there with sending it and then not sending it. Helps if I remove the headers. All right, so it didn't reply with that, so it's good. It's acting as expected. I can send the expect 100 continue, all that good stuff. Next thing would be to do some tests. So I should be back in PowerShell 5.1. Let's start ps pester tag feature path, and let me find the path to the WebCmdlet tests. Assuming everything is back in the place where it should be. PowerShell modules utility, and WebCmdlet tests. I only want to run the WebCmdlet tests because they take quite a while to run on their own, and any of the other tests would fail anyways when we try to do it in CI if I broke something else. I wonder if they're still using Web Listener. It looks like they are, because now I'm getting all the yep. So the Web Listener is still being used. That's good to know. I spent a fair bit of time writing that Web Listener. I think a huge chunk of my PRs in the project are around that Web Listener. Hey, Glenn. Yeah, I do use 5.1 to build 6, and there's good reason for this. I ran into some things where I would be building and I wouldn't see quite well which whether I was in my my actual installed 6 or the built 6, and it became messy. So I started just saying, you know what, I'm always going to use 5.1 to build and test the 6. So it's kind of a habit that I picked up from making mistake after mistake. It's a lot of fun stuff. It's gonna actually do any builds. It didn't even do any. That's helpful. All right. Must be missing something, right? Format alpha include throw PowerShell. Try passing in the PowerShell path bin. Where'd this go? It's underneath here. No? Okay. Yeah. PowerShell Win Core source. PowerShell Win Core bin. Publish. So here it is. Copy path. PSCJ, what's that? Well, they could be. I don't know, it's been a while, right? Like they used to be feature. Let me look. Thanks, Steve. Like I said, this is like getting back into the saddle. I feel so rusty on all of this. Oh. And you guys did do a lot of changes to the CI on this in the meantime. Right, so past the 5 million helper functions we have to do to test the WebCmdlet's tags feature. I'm pretty sure they were all feature tag and require admin on Windows. Yeah. I don't know. Try, I don't need this PowerShell one. You're right, it should automatically detect the one that I just built and use it. See if it picks up any tests, maybe. Maybe it can't just point it to the file. I've got to point it to the Yeah, but I don't want to run all the tests. It's like an eternity. So we're getting these ones. Oh, hilarious. My my antivirus, I forgot to disable it. It's freaking out about the new PowerShell binary doing weird stuff. Yeah, that's a good point. Do that. Thanks, Steve. wonder if it's just freaking out because the yeah, it's not running any of them. I'm going to suspect that this has something to do with my antivirus and the fact that I didn't disable it before doing this, because you know that's a I'm just disabling all of my uh, crazy levels of uh, antivirus that I have turned on. For a limited period of time, and that should maybe help, because I'm betting like it's probably trying to run web listener, and then web listener's like not being able to bind because the antivirus is being like, no, you can't just use ports, and that would cause this to fail. Yeah, that's fun. Me. Stupid antivirus. All right, I'm gonna rebuild now that I think my AV freaked out and removed everything, so yeah. And the web commandlets, especially, they depend on the web listener, and then there's also the new like certificate thing too. Uh, so it depends on those to actually run any of the tests for that. Um, okay, let's try this now. I'm having no love on this one. Oh, we have plenty of things in the web commandlet test that could cause this to just silently fail. It's not great fun, but I am going to try one thing first. I'm going to try switching over to 6.0. So I'm normally doing this from a console, or rather 6.1.2 is what I'm going to switch to. I don't need to do that one. Path. Let's try it this time. Yeah, zero test failures, ship it. Zero divided by zero, 100%. Or is it undefined? Or this is painful. Okay. Uh, so has anyone checked to make sure the web commandlet tests are actually running in CI too? Like this makes me a little scared. Um, that they're broken, right? Like, yeah, this is like what? It's like start web listener doesn't run, but let me do port module and this is in test tools modules HTTP listener. Is there a web listener? Yes. Let's import the web listener and try to start web listener. Okay, so that runs. It seems to be doing that, so maybe that's not it. Hopefully that warning is not what kills it. That we stop web listener. That's not going to be helpful. All right, I guess I can't test this locally for whatever reason. I don't. This is true. Yeah, don't know why that's not running. So my suspicion was that start web listener was um, doing this, but let me uh, let me try just now that I've got I don't need to start. Let me invoke uh, pester path and try that. Try manually and doing it this way. Okay, well at least it runs here. If I just do invoke pester, um, oh, and this is only so I'm confident that I didn't break anything, but I'm pretty sure that I didn't break anything. Um, and then kind of a preamble to adding the tests, because, you know, fix a bug, add a test, right? So we don't redo that bug. Now I should have, so everything passed for skipped, and that's because I'm not on Linux or Mac OS, and we have some platform-specific tests due to some history. Um, so I should have like a whole bunch of headers tests in here that I can kind of do that with. Just a matter of finding one. Returns headers dictionary. Disable keep alive headers. Yeah, yeah. It works fine on your system, but it doesn't work fine on mine. I don't know. If anybody else can run the web commandlet tests on their local system and see, I I don't know. Invoke pester works fine on it if I have built web listener and imported the web listener module anyways. Docker. So when I originally was looking at the web listener code to add it in here, I looked at doing a Docker, and one of the problems we ran into is that Docker wasn't available on the Mac OS build agents that we were using at the time. I don't know if it's available on the Mac OS build agents. GP returns. I guess I can just add this to the end of this. I mean, I don't have a good context to put this in. I guess I can search context. There's so many tests in this file. Ugh. Every time I have to write tests for this, I have skip header, validation, verification test, basic HTML, HTTPS test, multi-part form data tests, authentication tests, SSL protocol tests, file resume tests, retry tests. And we're back to the beginning. So I guess a new context. Or I can just find, man, all of these are going to be like this. Ugh. So painful. Spend more time figuring out where the test should go versus actually writing the test. Wish I could like say, hey, all the it blocks, go ahead and put those down. Form. These are all rough. Includes content headers. Includes content headers and headers property. Content header inclusion. All right, this is as good a spot as any to shove these. This test, it does not, it verifies invoke web request does not, I hate this language, send expect 100 continue headers by default. And to do this, don't need all of this, but I'm gonna basically steal it. Query, headers, no headers, content type, body, okay, plain. Response. Which one is response? Is response just give me the headers? Let me see. Start, web listener. And then get web listener URI dot test headers. Nope. Auth, cert, compression, delay, delete, encoding, get. think get is just good enough. Yeah, and yeah, so I can just use get. Should be fine. In fact, I don't think I need anything other than that. Just get. Um, yeah, definitely. I'm gonna have to definitely spend some more time learning how to VS Code. Uh, just sad considering how much time I spend in it, and I don't spend enough time actually learning how to use it properly. But c'est la vie. So get, and then we do result equal. I really hate this thing. I don't like doing it this way. I stopped doing it in the newer tests. Invoke. It was too. We have like this execute web command wrapper thing that does all this extra stuff to check things and all that kind of stuff. It's like he was well intentioned, but it ended up like sometimes it would there was some like edge cases where it would cause the test to pass and they weren't actually passing, or we get false passing. There is several open issues on refactoring the WebCmdlet tests, and I invite anyone in the community to assist me in doing that. They've been open for like a year and a half now. So invoke, this is the web request section, URI. And then there's some kind of so I'm going to change this to response, and then this to result equal response dot content convert from JSON, since this one does not automatically convert. Hey Tyler. Yeah, back in the saddle, working on some PowerShells. It's been a blast so far. I can't even run a WebCmdlet test using start PS Pester. So it's greatness. So result dot headers. It's all lowercase. Headers dot expect should be null or empty. And I need to make sure that we actually get something, so result dot method should be get and we'll also check for URL. And URL should be URI toString. Yep. All right. So this way I've got some wrapping around this, making sure any kind of test that does be null or empty is kind of dangerous if you don't test something else in the output because of the silent get nothingness of PowerShell. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to basically oh, come on. No. All right. I don't have a good spot to stick that in the same spot in the invoke REST method tests. So I'm going to find the topmost context for it and then stick it above that. Authentication tests, response headers. Is this a context block? It is. Encoding. I don't want to create a context just for this one, so I'm going to put it right before the first context block. And this becomes invoke REST method. So we don't need to convert this one from JSON, but we do still need to do the same test and change this from response to result. Now, next one is to make sure that it sends expect 100 header when defined in headers. Expect equal 100 dash continue. Expect should be exactly 100 continue. And copy this one and add this one after this first test. Change this from that to invoke web request. And then add the conversion back in. Becomes response and result equals response. All right, so I've added two tests that test exactly what I'm fixing here. Let me stop web listener and vote pester on these tests again and watch them fail. I know they're going to fail. They never pass the first time. Unless I didn't save the file and then I'm like, yay, everything's fine. And then I push it up and, there we go. Haha. Awesome. Called it. I don't even always right click copy. I switch between them. I don't know why. Like I do plenty of Control C, Control V. I'm not always right clicking and copying. All right, so what did I fail on here? Verifies, invoke rest method, sends, expect 100, continue. Oh, okay. So right now I am I'm not in the right PowerShell, and since I'm doing invoke web requests manually, it's Jesus. All right, that's why. Yeah, let's run that correct version of PowerShell. You want to know if there's some shortcut to actually run the built PowerShell? That'd be really nice to like have. I'm always like digging through the thing to get it. Or, don't. Get PS output. And sweet. Thanks, Steve. I've been needing that for all of my development of the PowerShells for all of eternity. Is Pester going to be installed here? Is it going to complain that I don't have? Okay, good. It's there. All right. Let's not do that, though. Port module. Okay. We're gonna try running this from the one here. Copy path. I'm giving start PS Pester the benefit of the doubt that it will work inside this one, and it still doesn't. So we'll have to do invoke Pester, but at least start PS Pester does some of the work for me on setting up the environment. Gitmo, test, tools, modules, web listener, PSD1. All right, now I should be able to do invoke pester path. Now it should pass all the tests. And we'll also find out if other things failed because got a sea of green tests, but I was testing against 612. Yeah, none of my changes affects that. So the first one for invoke web request already went through, no fails there. So good deal. It already got through the invoke rest method ones too. All right, so they're all passing. And I know they worked because they failed in the 612, and they pass in the one that I've got here. So that's good. That's a good uh, way to see that I've actually fixed it. Yep. Cool. So the why were there so many changes? I didn't touch any of these files. What are you doing? I didn't touch you. Does this get created like by the build process? What is this? Okay. Seems like something needs to be added to git ignore. All right, so add test for expect 100 issue. All right, so we check this in to local repo, then push it up to the remote. I had already branched this off, so I'm good there. Push this up there. All right, now we can I like how right now I'm like talking to a bunch of people who already know all of this stuff. I hope there's at least some people watching who are not as familiar with working in the PowerShell project that are getting something out of this. And I know that people, when they watch the recording, they will, but it's just kind of funny that everyone who's chatting right now is intimately familiar with working with PowerShell core project. Okay, so we'll switch to Firefox. Go to PowerShell. Actually, I want to stay here. I'll do this in this one. Use the handy dandy compare and pull request. All right. Expect 100 continue issue with WebCmdlets. PR fixes number 7199. Removes the no longer necessary removal. That sounds really weird. WebCmdlets will no longer forcibly remove. Forcibly is missing probably a couple of characters. Remove Yeah, I thought of some clever ways to do that without having to do any kind of gates before. Um, some things we could have added to PS Pester to automatically detect whether feature tests were required or not. Uh, but I decided not to spend time on it. Forcibly remove. This was a legacy setting that needed to be there because of platform differences that have since been resolved in core effects. Context. Do I just linked? This is new too. I haven't seen this new format. Checklist is good. I'm familiar with this. Has a meaningful title. It does. Summarize changes. I did. Change is not breaking. Definitely not. It's fixing. Sure, all HPV. I didn't need to do that. They should all be done. There are no new ones. PR is ready to merge and is not work in progress. Faux show. User-facing changes not applicable. Other than the fact that users will no longer be confused why their expect headers aren't working. Testing new feature. I have added them. And I have the feature tag. And create. Oh, yeah. I don't know why I was doing that one. Should have done X. I can fix that. Why was I doing that instead of X? I did X on the first one. There we go. All right. Okay. So, yeah, uh, your faith in me is misplaced, Joel. I make so many mistakes. Yeah, it is easier to check the boxes after creating the pull request. But I've found that uh, I want to set a good example, and the number of pull requests that come in without these being completed makes me twitch. So I'd rather show up front that, hey, you should do these before you submit the pull request. Hopefully people follow my example, even if it is a little more painful. All right, so now it's in the good hands of our maintainers to uh, work this out and review it and get back. And hopefully Ilya can point out some glaring problems with my tests. That's always fun. So I'll be looking forward to that. Anyways, so that's fixing a rather simple bug in the WebCmdlets, and kind of the entire process start to finish there, with the exception of the hours of research I put into the problem before fixing the bug. Um, and that's that's about it, man. I think that I'm gonna sign off, and I hope everyone enjoyed watching this. I I like Ilya a lot, and I've learned a lot working with him on this project. So I'm not knocking him at all, and I really appreciate the amount of time he spends going through pretty much every line of every pull request. That's just insane. I tried doing it for a while, and I was like, wow, how does he have time? I can't even figure it out. Takes so much time to go through all of this. Well, yeah. So, anyways, shout out to Ilya. Probably since he's not a huge part of the English-speaking PowerShell community. I don't know how big he is, but he definitely needs more recognition than he gets from all of us for all the work he does. So I can never do that. Anyways, I'm going to sign off for the night, and I hope everyone enjoyed, and I hope to see you back. Take care.